welcome back. We are today going to be looking at a continuation of our strength training videos, and specifically how we have progressed from where our bodyweight exercises took off. So if you recall, we were doing a lot of pushing, pulling and legs. We're going to stick with that same strategy and conduct a workout which involves all three of those things. Each of these exercises that we're going to do will involve what we call a compound movement, which is a big multi-joint movement, because those are the ones that use a lot of muscle, which means that you're burning a lot of energy, which is good for both fat loss but also strength gains. But they will be followed by what we call a superset, which is any type of exercise that follows very quickly on. The supersets we will be using will be a mixture of plyometrics, jumping exercises, isometrics, which are like planking type exercises, and eccentrics. So those are the sorts of exercises where you're lowering yourself very slowly. So the main principle we'll be talking about today is time under tension. When you're training females specifically, one of the biggest worries that women have when you start to talk about strength training is bulking. Whilst we all know that this is a concept that's very difficult to achieve, most blokes personal trainer blokes have been trying to do this for years and years and years, and we struggle every week to make gains. But women seem to think that by doing one set of squats, they're going to suddenly get bulky. However, you can develop bigger muscles by doing heavier weights. So what we try and do is look at spending more time doing the weight training exercise at a lower weight. So rather than these things where you do lighter weights for more reps, actually if you do the same amount of reps but just slow the rep range down, we like to use 4 seconds on the way down, a pause at the bottom and then explode up, you increase the length of time the muscle's under tension, and by that way you're stressing the muscle without having to load it with weight. So the first exercise we're going to go and look at is going to be the squat. So Theodora is going to perform this squat for us. I'm going to get her to do it exactly as she would normally do it, and then I'm going to make some different variations in how she does this. The main principle of today, like I said, is time, and with that we're going to look at range of motion, so how low she goes in her squat, because of course if we want to go deep we have to use more muscle fibres, more energy used, etc, etc. So right, you go ahead and set up there, Theo. Good. Now a back squat, which this is one of the greatest exercises for legs because it works both the front, the back, the glutes and the lower limb as well. You can do front squats where the bar's in the front position, which tends to be much more quad based, so much more front of the legs. As women, we tend not to want to do this. Guys, if you want to get bigger quads, I always like to do front squats. Anyway, fire away with your squat here. Good. Now the key here is how low she goes. Her back is still in good posture. You'll find a lot of times people will tend to turn and tuck their tail. That just means you're too tight in your hip flexors usually and that your glutes aren't firing. Come all the way back up, fully extend and go again. Let's go again. Now Theo squats in a very narrow fashion. That's because she's got good flexibility. If, however, pop back up, you've got tightness in your hip flexors, which is 90% of us, you can go a little wider in your stance and you can open your toes more, which gives you more space. That's technically cheating. I don't particularly like it, but for the sake of getting the thing done, you can do that. So let's go ahead and do a squat there. Okay, so we just give us a couple of warm-ups. Now these bars, bigger bars in the gym, Olympic bars, they weigh 20 kilos. Good, that's the right tempo. Keep going, one more like that. So you know that when you walk into a gym, if you've got a big bar, that's 20 kilos. Anything more than that, any bars that are smaller than that tend to be half the weight. So if you rack that for me, that's easy for her. So we're gonna go up a little bit. So we're gonna look to how we do it. You were cool with the 20, right? So the 20 kilo bar. We're now gonna look at putting some weight on here. These are 5K plates each. This is up to 30 kilos. I know how much Theo lifts, and we know that because we've tested a thing called the 1 rep max, and that's basically as much as she can lift with good form for 1 repetition, whereby if the second repetition was to take place, the form would fall apart and it would be dangerous. So you can usually, once you've calculated your 1 rep max, which you should do with a trainer or a super friend, you can basically work out how many reps is going to be right for you. But to save yourself the time and the effort, basically, once you've got 20 kilos on and you go up in a series of 5 or 10 kilos each time, you're probably going to be safe. So whack yourself under there. Let's see how many reps we've got out of here. Ideally, we want to get 6 because we're then going to come on to doing our superset, and that's going to be an explosive plyometric jump. So give me 6 reps. decent tempo, and then we'll move into our jumps. Good, 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 good. Hold it there, push the knees out, good, and up, bang, 1. And notice at the end of this squat, every time she comes up here, okay, she squeezes. And that squeeze means you're completing the rep. So many people will do exercises where they'll go up and down and go through the motions of the rep, but they don't use the bottom and the top end to create the intensity that you want that's going to make that big difference. Squeezing at the end of a rep here fully straightens out the quads, gets the glutes involved, and again at the bottom here, pausing, activates the glutes, moving the knees out. All these little tips and tricks make the exercise harder, more intense, better for you. All right, coming up out of there, good, and rack that bar. And now we're going to go straight into a superset. All right, so we've done our squats. We haven't let the heart rate come down. The heart rate's gone up a lot because we're spending a lot of time under tension. We want to continue to get the body going to carry on that high heart rate. But we don't want to be able to, we don't want to lose form. So if we carried on with this, we'd have probably lost form and got an injury. So what we can now do is stress the muscle fibers a little bit more with a varied exercise. So we go straight into an explosive jumping exercise. 2 good things about this. One is it tends to alter the type of muscle fiber you use into a fast twitch. And we know that good things happen when you use fast twitch fibers versus slow twitch. And the second big thing is that it accelerates the heart rate. So rather than having to do cardiovascular work versus weights work, we can combine the 2 here. So just you go ahead there, and I want 6 big jumps out of you there. So crack on, go. Now I notice this is quite a high bench. You don't have to be on a high bench, but the good thing is that Theo steps back off it for safety. You can jump on and jump off, and the jumping off element, if you crack on here, do one for me where you jump off. Good. The deceleration or the eccentric movement on the lowering jump there is very good for developing explosive power, which is good for athletes like footballers. Up we go again. There we go. Good. Good. Give me 2 more. 1, excellent. And stop there, good. And actually now what we're going to do, rather than keeping it at 2 sets, because Theo is a girl and she's really interested in glutes, we can go on to perform a tri-set, a 3rd exercise to keep the tension. And that's what we're going to do next. We've done our squat, 6 repetitions under tension, decent tempo. We've gone into an explosive plyometric movement with 6 of our bench jumps here. Again, those are a slightly quicker, harder to control movement in terms of tempo, but we want to now amp it up even further, keeping the body continually moving along its energy timeline from a purely muscle into an anaerobic state into an aerobic cardiovascular state. This is what we call a metabolic sort of switch over, and we're going to go down into another exercise which is really useful to sync alongside that. Fits in with the whole package of this, but specifically works the glutes and the hamstrings. Because Theo's squat, because she is built the way she is, she's very curved here. Again, that makes her squat quite shallow. So what happens with this exercise is I want to make sure that we're getting these elements, these key elements in here, the hamstring and the glutes, involved. So I'm going to target them specifically alongside the squat. Other people who squat more upright probably already get this position, so they might not need to do this as much. But if you spot sort of weaknesses in your squat, you don't have to spend years correcting them and getting this technique. Her biomechanics just don't allow it. So we will string an exercise in that manages to take care of this and has the benefit of keeping the energy going, the energy timeline going. So whack down on there. This is a glute ham bridge. I'm going to do it on Theo here today. You can do this on your own by using a weight. You could use the bar resting across you. You could use a kettlebell. I prefer to do this if you've got a friend or someone in the gym who you can help with, and there's 2 reasons for that. We're going to plonk this down here, just over the bum area, directly over the bum area, not on the legs and not on the tummy, right in the groin area. And I'm going to squeeze her legs at the same time, so she's going to be pushing out as she pushes up. The benefit of this, go for it, you crack into 6 of those, is that while she's pushing here, this glute exercise and hamstring exercise is having an added extra by force production this way. So we're really targeting the glute medius. The glute medius, the muscle at the top of the bum here, is responsible for protecting what's called your sacroiliac joint, which is where if you aren't using it properly, you start to get back pain in your squatting and your lower body exercises. So that little extra tweak, and if you want, you can go the other way, where I come on the inside of your legs, and if you squeeze me now, we're now working the inside part, the adductor group, which also helps with hip stabilization. So we can add a little tweak to it and create more intensity, more targeting, all in the same set. So up and down, nice tempo, big squeeze at the top, squeeze my legs, good, and up from there. And if you give me my legs back, thank you very much. And that's that exercise. And we would come, now, you'd have a little rest, 90 seconds I like to do, it's about 1.5 minutes, water, not a selfie, and then we'll go again. We'll repeat that 3 times, and if you've got time, a 4th time if you really want to go for it, but around about 3 sets of that 3 exercise, and that would, that's your lower body done. All right, so we've just done our lower body segment, and now we're going to go into an upper body exercise. Traditional split training plans, people tend to do legs on one day, back on another, chest on another, and that's fine if you've got a lot of time and you're training for a specific sport or something. But what you can do is to put push, pull, and legs together, and I like to do that because there's for two reasons. One is there's a thing called blood pooling, whereby if you're training lower body and then ignoring your upper body, you can tend to find that there's a lot of blood flow down to there, which is natural because that's where the body's requiring a lot of blood flow, a lot of oxygen. So to then throw in an upper body exercise within that workout, you tend to get a more holistic flow of blood, which means nutrients, and it means more of the internal mechanisms of the body get stressed out, which is always quite good. So I quite like to do, on a leg day, I quite like to follow an exercise like that with a pulling exercise straight away. 2 reasons. When you squat, you're getting spinal compression. So if we go straight into a hanging exercise, which we're going to do here, you get decompression. So you get what's called it's to do with what's called axial loading. So you can actually decompress the spine, and then we can come on to a further exercise after that. Today we're going to look at chinning up and pulling up and all those sorts of things. We're going to use rings. Nowadays gyms have become less formatted with machinery and become more free functional training spaces, and rings are cropping up all over the place. We've had them for ages, that's why we built our pods. So we're going to get Theodora to do a ring chin-up. So I'm going to have to help her because most people find it a struggle to pull up their own body weight, but it's one of the greatest goals you can probably try and achieve if you're going to set yourself a little personal goal, lift your own body weight up from the floor. So if you get into position here, the good thing about the rings is they can move. So often what that means is that you're going to be utilising a lot of different shoulder positions and a lot of different hand positions. That means a lot of small assisting muscles, as well as the big latissimus muscles and the big lower back muscles here. They're all going to work in synergy. So if you go far away, I'm going to turn around here and I'm going to grab her legs. The key to a good chin up is not arching your back. Okay, you want to try and keep your rib cage in line with your pelvis, which we know is tough for Theo because she's built this way. But so I'm going to really try and make sure she keeps nice and straight as she chins up. Right, you go for it. Pop up there, hold the legs, good. Now a little bit of help is needed with her, not too much. But again, I'm not holding the legs and making her arch her back. Up, good. Okay. Now twist the hands so you're in an underhand position and a supinated position, pronated position, that's it, good. And then pulling up. This is a little bit easier because this hand position involves using the biceps, which is much easier. Up you go. Again, now give it a good hold, lower, very slowly. In an exercise like this, the downward motion is the key. It's called the eccentric phase, and if you can do eccentric lifts, if you can't pull yourself off the ground, jump up and lower yourself. You'll get stronger doing that. In fact, if you do that sort of every day, by the end of the week, you'll be pretty sore, but by the end of the month, you might even be able to pull yourself off the ground. So give me a few of the eccentrics now, just a little jump, and then slowly lower. We're going to hit 2 of those. So we had 4 full ones probably, and then 2 at the end there, just lowering. Go again. Try and keep those ribs in line with the hips. That's the tough bit. It usually means your legs are in front of you, not behind you. Good. All right. Now we're going to move on to our superset. Supersets aren't just for getting the pump or driving heart rate up. There are ways you can also use supersets to focus in on particular weak points. With Theo, as you've seen a chin up, she's not got a lot of upper body strength. She can't pull her own body weight up. I mean, she can squat for days, which is great, but if she's going to be able to do that, she kind of needs to have symmetry and balance in the upper body area too. One of the big problems with Theo really is actually while she's got really good lat muscles, she lacks real strength in the thoracic area here. So kind of what we talk about here is your rhomboids. So a really good superset now for her, rather than just smashing out another exercise to get the heart rate, is going to be a row. So Theo, you drop down on here. Rowing exercises and pulling exercises are the two things you do for back training, so we're still within the back training realm. Again, we don't want this to be super quick, okay? The tempo is the same as all the other exercises we're doing. 4 seconds up, big squeeze at the top, couple of seconds, and then lowering again. This exercise, the lowering phase here, so she controls her shoulder blades, is really key, because that's the exercise part, the part up here, which is the challenge, the lowering self of the chin up. So again, just 6 of those. There you go. Drop those down. And now we've got an exercise set there. We're going to stop there with that because the chin up is it's a very big exercise. We don't want to wear the muscle group out. With squats and leg exercises, we could go to 3 sets, 3 exercises within a set, because those are big muscle groups. It takes quite a lot of time to fatigue them out. With Theo, her strength isn't in her back, so we would probably stick to 2 there so that we don't completely ruin the point of her doing a second set. And now we're going to take a 90-second break, get some water in, and then we'll go again. So we've done our chin-ups or pull-ups, or our modified chin-up pull-up. We've also done our rhomboid row. Now we want to add in an exercise that works the abdominal muscles, but still continues to stress the main muscles, the primary movers that we were trying to do, which are our back exercises. So one of the best ways of looking at abdominal exercises is, rather than saying on one day, oh, I'm going to have an abs day, I like to put them in as supersets to other bigger exercises. And the main reason for that is that it allows the big exercise, the bigger muscles to recover or to continue operating, whilst you keep the heart rate jacked up. So they become a sort of a functional way of doing abs, rather than just having to sort of isolate them and spend more time. We don't want to have to spend more time in the gym. So what we're going to do on back day is an ab exercise, with a back exercise, is an ab exercise that mimics what you were doing with your back. So I like to do what's called a hanging leg raise. Most people will find this exercise difficult. It's a gymnastics-based exercise. You need a lot of core strength to do it well. But the good thing is you should try and do as many as you possibly can. If you can't do them, we're going to show a regression straight in. But try and do as many, even if it's only one exercise, one of these, just doing it will get you better at it. So you come up into an isometric contraction, so your back muscles are on, my chest muscles, my rib cage and my pelvis are aligned, and then I literally just raise my legs up and down, or a bent knee version, which is slightly easier, okay? Now I try to do 6 of those. Okay, now if I don't manage 6, I then come down and we'll demonstrate with Theo a superset version of that. So we'll get set up and get ready to go. Let's have a crack. I reckon you've got 3 of these in the tank. All right, are you ready? So up you come into that braced position. So back muscles are switched on, core switched on, we raise. 1. Good, up again. 2. As soon as that form goes, you drop down, up, 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 up. So drop down, no point in continuing that exercise. We'll quickly whip into a lying leg raise version. Find any flat, you can do this on the floor, but a bench is good. Lie flat for me. Hands behind your head holding the bench here. And now we mimic the same exercise. Key on this one, of course, now is to keep the back flat here. So we can lower the legs to there, and then up, and then come off the bench for me. Push up here, good. Gets an added little tweak that there. Down we come, up we come. Good, squeeze, down we go. 2 more, up we come. Good, last one. Keeping the back nice and flat. Good, and up. And that's done there. So we've got 3 there and 4 there. So you should be pleased with yourself for that. Excellent. Right, now we can pause. 90 seconds, a little bit of water, and then we'll go again. All right, so we've done our legs exercises and we've done our upper body pulling exercises. So now we've just got push left. Pushing exercises, which tend to be chest-based and shoulder-based, are, again, not necessarily something that when you're training women that they're particularly strong at. So again, what we try and look for is tempo, so slowing the exercises down. We look for compound exercises, so things using bars, but we also incorporate quite a lot of body weight movements, which use a concept known as isometric, so things that people are familiar with like planks. So we're going to incorporate all of those things in, plus using cables. Now cables, which is what we'll do for our superset, allow the tension of the exercise to be continuous. So as you get a bit tireder, especially when it's a weaker exercise, if you can go from a big compound weights exercise like a bench press, which we'll do first, into cables, it's another really good way of, as you fatigue, but managing to keep the tension on the muscle going, keep the energy up, the energy usage up, without worrying about getting injured. So we'll start off straight off with a bar. Again, we know this is 20 kilos from our squatting, so we're just going to look to do a nice slow eccentric movement down to the chest, about basically just over where your boobs are, holding it there for a couple of seconds and then exploding the bar back up. So now I'm spotting here, i.e. I'm helping her out. You can do this on your own. It's worth getting a spotter. You crack on, give me 6 good reps. It's worth getting a spotter for exercises where you're weaker. So in the way I helped her up on the chin-ups there, because the body adapts when you push it past what it can do on its own. With a bench press, when you're hanging, if you just drop to the floor, you're probably going to be okay. In this particular instance, if she fatigues and drops the bar, she's going to get crushed. So if you are nervous of benching, do have a spotter. But if you notice, I'm really only just using my fingers. Now I'm pretty strong, but I'm not strong enough to lift a bar with 2 fingers. So she's doing the load here. I'm just merely helping her guide it and acting as a safety mechanism. Good, good, good. And up. Now I don't want her resting this on the chest. When she gets down here, a nice little tip here is pull the bar apart. So try and slide the bar apart. Because a bench pressing, a pushing exercise is these muscles here, but it also comes from in here, all the way in the back. Shoulder blades back and pressing here. So you'll find a lot of the time when you start to do these exercises that it's not just the chest that hurts. Actually, there's loads of other muscles, shoulders and back, that will start to hurt too. And that's why we use compounds. Right, now we're going to go on to our superset. So up you get. We've done our bench press, heavy load, compound. So now we're going to move into a cables exercise, as I mentioned before. Most gyms probably won't have this kind of cable. You can use any type of cable machine. I like these pieces of kit because they're low friction, so the weight that you've got at the end is the weight that you're lifting. Plus also you can be a bit more dynamic with them. We're going to do a cable fly, and I'm going to demonstrate this one because a lot of people with cable flies tend to end up shrugging. Okay, and that's all you're doing then is working through your neck muscles and the top muscles. This is not what we're trying to achieve. What we're trying to achieve is to stick the chest out, bring your rib cage underneath, and then squeeze with the chest. A nice squeeze there for 2 seconds, and then again, tempo, nice. Like, this is not an exercise to rack out like this. All you're going to do is get injured. Nice, slow concentration. Remember, this is a superset exercise. It's using continuous tension that cables can provide, both in the contraction and the eccentric motion, which is beneficial here if you're fatigued after pressing. It's going to push a lot of fluid, a lot of pump into the muscle here, so a lot of nutrients and a lot of blood. But the great thing about it is that because you don't need a particularly heavy weight, you can control the motion. So if you have a shoulder weakness or anything like this, again, cables are a much safer way of getting the muscle to work a little bit harder. So you come in here, grab hold of that one. And again, I don't really need a huge amount of reps. 6 reps is doing it. If you're taking, 4 to 5 seconds over each rep, that's the same as doing 20 quick reps. So coming all the way back up, good. And then down, and then what I want you to do is twist the pinkies together. That's going to squeeze the chest and stabilize the shoulder. Back up, good. And then back down, good. Squeeze, nice. Good. Nice and slow on the eccentric motion here. We're working really through here. What people tend, as you get a little bit older, both boys and girls, tend to find that this area here is a bit of a concern, especially if you're wearing, in the summer, if you're wearing dresses, etc., that kind of accentuate the armpit area. You tend to get a bit of overhang here, and that's always something that we get asked as trainers to get rid of. That whole muscle group, the pec major here, inserts into the shoulder. That's all part of the same muscle. So working the chest has that benefit. Good. Good, good, good. And then stop it there. Let those go down, nice and safe. All right. Now, with this exercise, with the upper body exercise, the one thing we haven't really talked about is abdominal muscles. Now, throughout the whole of those, the leg exercise, the back exercise, and those 2 chest exercises, your abs have been working to stabilize your spine, okay? That's why we do lower and upper in the same way. But what we can now do is add another exercise in that adds another element of intensity, i.e. by bringing the abs in even more directly. And that's going to be what our old favorite is, a plank. planking exercise really is just an isometric, which means an isometric exercise, which basically means muscles contract and they extend, but they also switch on. And once they're on, squeezed out, that is known as an isometric contraction. It's a bit confusing, but basically it's effectively like squeezing the muscles, activating them, and then not moving. Once we can do that, that's a very good way of helping your core work. But that doesn't mean you have to stay still. The traditional plank is a still exercise. What we're going to do is use this to keep on working through her chest muscles, but also to start to work on, when you're doing an exercise like a pushing exercise, the assisting muscles, the ones that help the main muscles, which are your chest, are these triceps, the ones that people refer to as your bingo wings. What we can do in the planking exercise here is continue to work through the chest and the triceps while doing abs. So no time is wasted and all the energy is maximized. So if you drop down into a plank here, this is, I like to use an unstable surface here, again, adding another layer of intensity. All these little tips and tricks into like a standard exercise, helping create a much harder exercise without you sort of really knowing about it. Now start walking up and down with the hands. Good. So whilst the isometric contraction is still here, still a plank, the abdominal region and the core stabilizing muscles of the back don't know any different. Now your chest and your triceps, the exercises that we were really doing here, are still working. So we've gone from a bench press to a cable to a very unstable, more functional movement here, an actual movement that you might do in real life, pushing yourself up off the floor, etc., etc. So again, keeping going with this, you might want to time this, for example. So you might do 6 reps of the bench, 6 cables, and then 30 seconds of this exercise at the end. How's your heart rate going? Yeah, exactly, and stop there. Good. So again, with the benefit of 3 exercises, we've worked through a whole different series of muscles. We've looked at concentric movements, eccentric movements, isometric movements. We've kept continuous tension using a load that's slightly heavier than she's normal to be able to lift herself. We've used cable tension, and then we've used body weight, just to exaggerate that, keep on keeping the muscle moving under tension. And with those 3, we'll take a 90-second break, and we'll repeat them again. I hope you've enjoyed the workout. Please remember to click on the Lomax logo so that you can subscribe.